How are you, Zerlik? Zerlik swallowed hard, and as Adam's apple jumped, he shook his head and spread his hands. Bad? Zerlik nodded and gagged. Don't they give you rations at work? Zerlik wiped the drops of sweat from his nose with his sleeve. In extremely limited quantity, he brought out with difficulty, staring at the bread. Yes, my friends, in very limited quality. I receive 1/4 of the diplomatic ration a month, which constitutes, if I'm not mistaken, if you permit me, I'll pinch off another little piece. Pinch it off, Zerlik, the prose writer said through clenched teeth. Pinch it off, why not? Thanks, fellows. A man should write propaganda plays, Zerlik. That's what one should do, the poet said gloomily, opening the wardrobe. In the huge, empty, echoing wardrobe hung a pair of new, blue, very beautiful trousers. You see? I see a pair of trousers. There you are. Trousers. Blue. Beautiful. New. A masterpiece, you might say. You bought them? I bought them. Today. Yes, and so I say a man should write plays, Zerlik. Zerlik raised his eyebrows. They buy them? Oh ho, and how they buy them. Just write them. Zerlik became very agitated. But do you know that's an idea? Propaganda? Propaganda. Seriously. Couldn't be more serious. You saw the trousers. It's an idea, friends. Only, how shall I put it? I'm not sufficiently experienced in the dramatic form. Of course, it is possible to reconstruct a thing or two from memory. I am thinking of Moliere's theater and the history of French. No history, Zerlik. To the devil with Moliere. My dear friends, really, it's an idea, Zerlik exclaimed with joy. But you must help me a little, brothers. All right, we'll help. But what does one write about? About hunger. But make it simple. 1, 2, 3. Zerlik excitedly finished the bread, looked with admiration at the beautiful trousers, blew at his nose, and went off to write the play. All night the prose writer and the poet heard the rustling of paper, the scraping of a pen, puffing, panting, and the pattering of the bare heels in the next room. Zerlik was writing. At dawn, he politely knocked at the door. He was admitted. He waved his pen excitedly, and an ink spot settled on his trousers. Forgive me for disturbing you. The play must be uncomplicated? Uncomplicated. The simpler, the better. You have no bread, my friends. None. Zerlik stood a while, shifting from one foot to the other, then he left. Zerlik wrote all morning, all day, and all evening. Hunger made his ears hum, and magnetic needles twitched before his eyes. They were eating cucumbers and round onions. At night, Zerlik loudly knocked at the door. Come in. He came in, and his hands fluttered a sheaf of paper covered with writing. In high excitement, he sat down on the windsill, took a piece of bread from the table, put it into his mouth, and said, chewing, I've written a play, fellows. I want to read it to you. Is it long? Short. 1 act. Read, Zerlik. And Zerlik read his play. The play was as follows. A vast, hungry steppe, railroad tracks in the distance, an abandoned baby 5 months old in the midst of the steppe. A crow flies over the baby. Wolves, a doggess, and a gopher circle around it. And on the ground beside it crawls a wise snake. The above-mentioned animals conduct a dialogue in the spirit of Maeterlinck on the subjects of hunger, the abandoned infant, and the lack of political consciousness in society. The wolf wants to eat up the baby. The snake reproaches him for cruelty. The gopher weeps. The crow prophesies imminent deliverance. The doggess begins to feed the baby from her own breast. Then a train arrives. The locomotive flashes its fiery eyes. A nurse emerges from the long row of hospital cars. She is not too late. The infant is saved. The wolf lopes off. The snake is triumphant. The hospital train bears the inscription, "All as one to the aid of the hungry population of the Volga region." Zerlich finished reading his play, put the manuscript on the table, and looked with feverish eyes at his listeners. "Well, comrades, what do you say?" The poet hid his eyes. "What can I tell you, Zerlich? It's a play, as plays go. A good play. The concept is interesting, but..." Zerlich felt a chill. "Yes, Zerlich, the idea is interesting, but it would be difficult to produce." "Do you think so?" asked Zerlich, blowing up at his nose. "Yes, I think so. Look, you have a whole hospital train in it." Zerlich imploringly untied the laces at his throat. "But it's only a set of cardboard, you know. It's only painted." "All right, let us suppose the train can be managed. But the infant? The infant? How can you bring a 3-month-old baby into a play, Zerlich?" Zerlich threw back his head. "It's 5 months old, and besides, it doesn't speak. It is a silent role, you see. They can even use a doll. Just make one up for the part." Perhaps if you use a doll. "And what of the wolf and the doggess? Why did you bring them in? And incidentally, why a doggess? What sort of animal is a doggess?" "Doggess is feminine for dog. An ancient usage. A Slavicism." "I see, a Slavicism. But who will agree to play a doggess? Did you think of that?" "I thought of it. He'll use stage makeup. He'll get down on all fours and walk around that way." "Oh, that's a point I've given very careful thought." "Very well, let us say it will pass. But the crow. How can the crow be played? And then you make it fly in your play? Zerlich!" Zerlich was silent for a long while, then he said in a flat voice, "And what about Rostand and Chanticleer? He has hens in the play, and I have a crow. After all, the difference is not so great." "No, not so great. All right, that can still pass. The crow, the gopher. It is not too important. After all, but the snake, Zerlich. Just think about it. A snake? Do you understand it? A snake on the stage? It's impossible. The snake kills the whole thing. The Department of Political Education will never buy a snake." Zerlich broke into a beady sweat. He whispered hoarsely, "Yes, I never took the snake into account." A painful silence followed. "So what is to be done, my friends? Throw out the snake, replace it with something else." "No, impossible. Without the snake, the whole composition falls apart. The snake is the reasoning element," Zerlich wilted gloomily. "But maybe," he said, scratching his nose and dully staring at the ceiling with his dusty eyes, "maybe, somehow, they can make a snake from a key fire hose and have the prompter speak for it? What do you think, fellows?" "No, Zerlich, the snake won't do." The poet glanced at the table. There was nothing edible on the table. The table was piled with newspapers. "Try to write something else, Zerlich." "I'll have to try. Good night, my friends. I'll go and try." Try. Good night." Zerlich went to his room, took off his shirt and his trousers, sat down on the striped mattress and clutched his head. He felt dizzy. He had no strength. They were eating. Zerlich stole up to the keyhole. On the table stood a bowl with salad. There was bread and a round onion. Zerlich returned to his table, pressed the pencil into the bridge of his nose so that it left a violet dot, and sat for a long time. Then he began to write a new play. He wrote all night. Green wheels were flying before his eyes. His hands dropped. He wanted to eat so much that he felt nauseous. From the courtyard came a smell of roast. He wrote all night, all morning, and half the day. At noon, he lay down on the striped mattress and imagined a large piece of bread with butter, a cup of milk, and an omelet. The market was not far. At the market, they sold cabbage soup and fried sausage. At the market, there were plated breads and milk. He had nothing to sell. Zerlich held his head, sighed, then rose and stole up to the wardrobe, his white, flabby body reflected like a slanting shadow in the mirror. He heard the tapping of his toenails on the floor, and his heart clattered like a typewriter. He opened the doors. The beautiful trousers hung in the huge wardrobe like a suicide in a vast and empty hall. Zerlich did not think about the sin of stealing. He forgot that he was a master of arts, that he could read, write, and speak many languages. Zerlich thought only of how much he would get for the trousers. He also thought that he would get a beating if he were caught. Zerlich felt very ashamed selling the stolen trousers, but after that he walked about in the market for 2 hours, eating. He ate bread and onions. He ate cabbage soup with cream and sausage made of dog meat. He drank milk and smoked cigarettes. When he was full to repletion, Zerlich cautiously made his way back to his room and sewed into his striped mattress 3 pounds of bread, 100 cigarettes, and a large number of cucumbers and onions. He removed his shirt with the laces and his trousers with the stamp of the automobile transport depot and hung them on the nail. After that, he sat down cross-legged on the mattress and devoted himself to Apuleius. In the evening, they came home and ate. They were probably eating round onions and bread, but it was unimportant. After a while, without hurrying, Zerlich put on his trousers, assumed a suffering mien, and knocked. He heard the sounds of panic behind the door, and 2 minutes later he was admitted. There was nothing edible on the table. It was piled with newspapers. "Look, my friends, I am very hungry. Can you give me a little piece of bread?" "Alas, Zerlich," sighed the prose writer. "Well, if you have none, you have none," Zerlich shrugged sadly. "You must write a play, dear fellow. A play," the poet pronounced gloomily and went to the wardrobe. "Here, if you please, take a look. Such a pair of trousers, a beauty." And he opened the wardrobe. Zerlich was tying the laces at his throat with a sorrowful air, looking down and off into the corner.